Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razak at CM Trading. Today is November 11, 2022, and today is Friday morning. So, wow, looking at the highlights today, U.S. markets rocket over 1,000 points yesterday. We're going to take a look at that in just a second. Major economic events of today at 5 p.m. South African time out of the United States. Another important number, consumer sentiment coming out later today. So as we look at the various markets, starting out with the Forex symbols, the US dollar tanks versus the major pairs as the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ just soar to heights after our CPI results. And looking at commodities, gold rallies to a major threshold while oil gains slightly. Looking at stocks, they all were up. Unbelievable across the board. And lastly, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin bounces off 15K, but still weak. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So here we go. We're going to start out with the Euro USD, and we're hitting that major threshold at resistance-ish area right here, 107, as the markets recoil. Now, looking at the GBP USD, also the dollar getting to 117. That's been a first for the dollar for quite some time versus the GBP. And looking at the Australian dollar, also hitting 66-ish level as this is recovering as well. Now, looking on the flip side, right, this is when the dollar gains versus, or the dollar loses versus the major pairs. Now it's flipped in these two cases of the USD and Canadian dollar, right? The USD is the first symbol that's quoted. And right here, we're making new lows versus the dollar, 132, as the Canadian dollar makes a comeback versus the US dollar and also the Japanese yen. Look at that, 141. That's a major correction for the yen versus the dollar as well. Now, jumping into commodities before we get to the major action, gold challenges these 1761. That's a major threshold because that's a resistance-ish area. If you look at crude oil as well, it did gain as well to $88. Now, here's the mainstay. Let's take a look at this monthly chart of the Dow Jones. Now, we've gone orbit. I mean, this is really like a rocket ship going from 28,800 on October 11th to where we are today, November 11th, to 33,950 points. We're right now at 62. So this thing is orbit. It's going up and not retracing. And it just seems like it's, on a tear up as it's making this recovery with the inflation in check. Now, inflation was worse than expected. That's what everybody thought. And then you saw that it wasn't as bad as everybody thought, and therefore the markets are just rallying. Now, there's a lot of people that are short the market, and this is just propelling the markets even higher because we call it a short squeeze, where all the people that are short just have to get out of their positions, and boom, this is exactly what happens. And you can see that right here. Now, looking at the NASDAQ also gaining here to 11,757. Now, looking off of our highs, we still have major area to come back in tech sector, okay? That doesn't mean the recession is over. It doesn't mean that, everything is back to normal. We'll still have a lot to get out of the woods here. So I'm just highlighting that fact as well. Now, looking at the individual stocks, Apple did gain to 146. Now, the biggest gainers are the ones that are components of the Dow Jones. For example, the JP Morgan is one that gained the most, 135. And again, it's still off of its highs of 172 by 37 points. So we're still off a lot. Intel did gain to $29 a share. If you look at Cisco, also gained to $45 a share. Okay, but really, I mean, we're still in a range. Okay, and to a certain degree. I mean, we've on the Dow Jones, we've obviously broken several levels. I mean, let's take a look at a daily. We're still below the 200-day moving average there. So on the NASDAQ, okay, but let's look at the Dow Jones again. We are way above that 200-day moving average, okay? So keep that in mind that we are just like breaking out on the upside and not retracing. So if you're short, this is really a very scary place to be, okay? So just be aware of it as this is still unfolding. Now, looking at Bitcoin, Bitcoin did have that sell-off the previous day. It did bounce off of it. And now we're somewhere in the middle of that at 17,400-ish level, okay, as we're kind of settling around this area as well. This is Fred Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.